Welcome to the new Workology Go Podcast. In just under 5 minutes, we'll get you the HR and workplace news you need before you start your day 2 times a week. Get ready, get set, and go with the new Workology Go Podcast.
Here are today's HR and workplace news headlines from the Workology Go Podcast. I'm Jessica Miller-Merrill. This podcast is sponsored by Workology. For us working in HR, sexual harassment investigations are necessary, but an often unwelcome part of our jobs. For those who aren't aware, sexual harassment is a form of sex discrimination that violates the Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Title VII applies to employers with 15 or more employees, including state and local governments. It also applies to employment agencies and to labor organizations, as well as the federal government. In 2018, the EEOC filed 66 harassment lawsuits, including 41 that included allegations of sexual harassment. That reflects more than a 50% increase in suits challenging sexual harassment over fiscal year 2017. In addition, charges filed with the EEOC alleging sexual harassment increased by more than 12% from fiscal year 2017. Overall, the EEOC recovered nearly $70 million for the victims of sexual harassment through litigation and administrative enforcement. In fiscal year 2018, up from $47.5 million in fiscal year 2017. So it's $70 million fiscal year 2018, $47.5 million fiscal year 2017. I'm not going to go into details on the definition of sexual harassment. I do want to talk about being an HR leader and a manager in the post-Me Too era. There's a growing concern from mainly men I am hearing about and from that are fearful about false sexual harassment charges in the workplace. And sometimes when I've tried to hug someone, maybe I haven't seen them for a while, I'm at a conference or I'm traveling for an event, I've gotten told a handful of times by men that said, I can't do that, meaning hug me anymore. While I understand where they're coming from, it does kind of make me sad. And I wondered how many sexual harassment charges in the workplace are actually false. Today's featured article comes from Minnesota Law Review and is titled, Men Fear False Allegations, Women Fear Sexual Misconduct, Assault, and Rape. Now, I'll link to this particular article in the transcript of the podcast so you can check it out. While I'm linking to that, I did want to talk a little bit about social media and how technology plays into all this. With the increase in technology, including social media and video, there is an increased likelihood that a sexual harassment, assault, or incident will be available for us as HR leaders to possibly review or view from this technology. Let's talk about how we get this information from Kate Bischoff. She's an attorney who has talked to me about sexual harassment before on a previous Workology podcast.
If a person comes forward and says, hey, look at the video, you should see this video, or you should have seen the posting, is to ask for them. Can you give me the snap? Can you forward it to me? Can you take a screenshot of the post? Because you need first to make sure that you have it. I often use an example with some Carlson School of Management students about, what happens if you post something bad. Well, the first thing that HR is going to want to need to have is the actual post, because in some instances it's easy for someone to delete the post or in the case of Snapchat, it to disappear. So we need to have that first off. And then we need to go through what is our normal investigative process. What do we do in situations like this? If it's a third party and someone who was not the target of the comment or the video or the post who's bringing it to you, do you need to go talk to the person who received it first? Or do you want to go straight to the individual who posted it? That will depend on the individual fact scenario, but HR is going to want to take action. And the first thing that they're going to need to do is make sure they have the offending social media post of some sort.
There are certainly false accusations or accusations where there is no evidence to support them that I've experienced or been a part of in my career in HR. I know that you probably have too. However, I do know that there are so many harassment incidents that don't get reported. According to a 2008 study by the Association of Women in Action, 54% of respondents reported to have experienced some form of workplace sexual harassment. 79% of respondents also reported to having experienced workplace sexual harassment at a management and senior management level. Now, the numbers don't necessarily add up here. If over half of people in the workplace have experienced sexual harassment, you would think that there would be more EEOC charges and investigations. And certainly that number for 2018 fiscal year would be much larger. I think it's more likely that these sexual harassment events are still going unreported. And people, mainly men, if they are being false reported, it's less likely that there are false reports. So let's break this down. 50 out of 100 or more women or people at work, more likely, are saying that they have been sexually harassed at work. Even if 5 out of that 100 are false, there's still 45 out of the 100 that are true. And I think that we should be worrying less about false accusations and whether or not we can hug each other, and think more about making sure that employees and victims, or both, feel comfortable and confident that they can talk to someone in HR instead of the EEOC, the media, or worse. Workology now offers SHRM certification prep classes on your schedule with over 36 hours of online training, a private Facebook group, and instruction using the SHRM learning system. We give you the resources you need. Visit workology.com/products to learn more. And that's this episode of the Workology Go Podcast, sponsored by Workology. We're your go-to for HR and workplace news. I'm Jessica Miller-Merrill. Thank you for listening.
To learn more about the Workology Go Podcast, subscribe to us on Apple, Google, and Stitcher. Our podcast is also available on Alexa and Google Home. Learn more at workology.com/Go Podcast and access this episode's resources, links, and reports for more information.